in our model, we have a wholesale channel, which is B2B to C, which is even more interesting because you're educating your broker partners and helping them educate their consumers and their realtors. So actually it's B2B to B and B2B to C on that model. I know, very confusing, a lot of acronyms, but a lot of B's. On the traditional retail model, it's B2B and B2C. Your referral sources, your B2B clients are typically your realtors. Traditionally, you're going out to look for a home.
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Business Ninjas. I'm here today with Krish Dhokia, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at Kind Lending. Krish, how are you today?
I am fantastic. Thank you for having me on, Andrew.
It is my distinct pleasure. I appreciate you spending some time with us on Business Ninjas. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and about Kind Lending.
Sure. So about myself, been in the marketing realm for a little north of 20 years, not telling of my age. But essentially started in the consulting space within the real estate and legal worlds, and then moseyed on over to mortgage about 7 or 8 years ago, because who doesn't want to market in mortgage, right? It's super exciting. And I've been with Kind Lending for a little over a year and a half. I've worked with the group at a prior company that the founder owned, which was Stearns Lending a couple of years ago. But Kind Lending is no longer a startup, is what we like to say, because we're just 3.5 years old now. Started right at the beginning of 2020, and has made a place on within the mortgage industry fairly quickly, again, because of just the robust experience of the leadership team, and pretty much everyone here has been in the mortgage industry for eons, if you will. So they've experienced the crash, they've experienced high rates, low rates, refi rates, and everything in between. And so Kind Lending is more of a kind of a cutting edge, out of the box marketing platform, in addition to just being a mortgage company. So we have multi-channels, a huge wholesale channel, which is now ranked in the top 10 in the country. A retail channel that is growing steadfast, predominantly in the West Coast, Midwest, and now growing out to the South and Southeast and East Coast. And then 2 joint ventures as well with Success Lending and Results Home Mortgage. So multi-channel kind of company. Last year, I think we did 2.7 billion or something in that neighborhood. That put us in the top 100 mortgage companies in America.
Excellent. So you started in 2020. Interesting timing, considering left turn signal went on pretty quickly there. Tell me a little bit more about the origin story of the company.
Yeah, so Glenn Stearns is the founder CEO of the company. Many have watched him on Undercover Billionaire and so forth, but he had founded a company called Stearns Lending, which was around for about 30-ish years, which was kind of sold to Blackstone, and he exited the company and started a barbecue through the Undercover Billionaire.
That's a linear path, isn't it?
Right. But he really just missed mortgage. That was his thing, and he didn't have to get back into it, but he got back into it to kind of create an opportunity to do it differently. Mortgage is traditional. It's very kind of why be fun when the end user has to kind of pay for the next 30 years. That's not fun, right? And so I believe the second or third employee he hired was a graphic designer. He knew that marketing, not just visual, but messaging and everything was important to him. When he contacted me a year and a half ago, the one thing that stood out is like, Krish, I'm tired of the boring everyday norm. I need someone that can think outside the box. And we all say that as marketers, right? Whether you're messaging or design or what have you, I can do it outside of the box. But mortgage is an industry that is so regulated, and we're always on our P's and Q's, always kind of, working around, not working around, but working within these parameters that regulation has set forth. And especially after 2010, right? The landscape changed so much after that. So yeah, that's the origin of Kind Lending. He just wanted to do something and do it fast. Glenn, just about 3 months ago, launched a bestseller book about him and his story. So you can pick that up at Amazon if you're interested. Really good book. It's called Integrity. But it was all about the relationships that he had prior within the Stearns, years, and was able to establish them. So, again, never. Our thing is we don't put down any of our competitors. Competition is good. But we also want to change the narrative, right? Mortgage is one thing, but the dream of home ownership is, usually separate, right? People don't associate the two. It is not dreamy to pay thousands of dollars a month, but we'll do it anyway when we rent. So it's a very interesting kind of change on how we market. So.
Having spent the last 19 years living in Los Angeles, the dream of home ownership gets murkier and murkier as you see the crazy numbers going on there. I am not there anymore. So you guys are, I mean, we throw the term around a lot these days, but a disruptor in your space if you're trying to take the mortgage lending world and keep it from being stodgy. And hey, it's hard to be catchy in a land of compliance. But sure. Tell me what differentiates Kind Lending from your competition. Yeah,
so we look at it from an education perspective as well, and try to meet multiple audiences, right? So we cater to whether you're 18 years old and want to buy your first home, and there's a lot of people that do that, say it, or just fresh out of college, or it doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. We have realized that one message or one marketing campaign or tactic doesn't fit for all. And I think everyone, whether it's in the mortgage industry or any other industry, realizes that, but they're not able to activate. And a perfect example is, we do reverse mortgage, and reverse mortgage is 62 and up. But we also know that equal housing and things says, you can't market based on pretty clear age discrimination or race and sex, but you cannot get a reverse mortgage unless you're 62 years old.
There's a conundrum for you.
Yeah, so exactly, right. So, but we're able to, there's trigger words. We know what the trigger words are and all that fun stuff. But we realize that, hey, just because the right now client for a reverse mortgage needs to be 62 plus, why are we not marketing to the 55, right, or the 45? Sure. Because it's their parents that are getting it, or they may be is dropping those touches throughout their lives, so that when they do get to that age, they're more informed. And so otherwise most companies are just only targeting on the right now, and it's really building that pipeline business through the marketing that you do. Don't discount the folks that are going to be in your pipeline 5-10 years from now. It is a long game.
And it's an important topic to educate people on right now, because refinancing at the current interest rates makes no sense whatsoever.
I read an article yesterday that 92% of Americans have an interest rate lower than 6%, meaning that they either bought prior, 2021, 2022, or refinanced. 92%.
Well, that's kind of odd to me, considering it doesn't sound like the home sale market is that stagnant at the moment. I find it hard to believe, but
yeah, but people are still buying homes because they realize that there's opportunities, whether it's getting a discount on the rate for the first year, with a buy down, or just refinancing when the rates do go down, because sure, what goes up must come down, right?
What are the typical or the most common problems you're solving for your clients?
Well, it's today, mortgage is very cyclical, as you know, right? But we haven't had any seasonality, right? Typically, we have seasonality where you're busy during the spring to summer months. You have a slowdown in the fall, a little spike during the holidays, and then it's a lull up until the next spring. We haven't seen that, right? And there's a lot of factors involved in that. Today, in addition to now we're starting to see seasonality again. So in addition to marketing within the seasonality parameters, we're also faced with I guess consumer intent and consumer predictions, and the consumer holds all the cards. Today, they don't feel like they need to sell their house. Today, they're not having to work, move for work or move for schools, or there's more e-learning happening for kids and more remote working for the adults. And so, there's all these other factors that we've never seen before, at least not all at once. And so what we, again, going back to educating the consumer, we're not trying to coerce anyone into, no, you should buy a house or you should sell your house. Because I think that's the other problem, right? Because people don't want to sell their homes. But there's products in mortgage space, and we're fortunate to have rehab loans and renovation loans. Like, hey, you know what, you're stuck in your house still 3 years after the COVID pandemic, but don't you want a pool, right? Don't you want to redo your kitchen that you're in all the time? So it has changed, and we had to be flexible enough to be able to pivot. And in the mortgage industry, especially marketing plans and business plans, we have to have flex plans. We're doing A through Z even, depending on the day, because interest rates are fluctuating, and mortgage companies and unfortunately some competitors are not making it through this cycle. A lot of mergers and acquisitions. So with that comes this unfortunate side of layoffs, but then you have new business, because there's more opportunity to grab that market share. So what we're doing is on all fronts, right? You're working on a recruiting model, you're working on a consumer model, you're working on a referral model, because even realtors, you've seen a lot of realtors are exiting the industry. So what your number one referral source was today, or like yesterday, might not be tomorrow. Sure. And so we're continuing to do B2B marketing as well.
Now, along that lines, what verticals are you servicing in the world of B2B?
So, in our model, we have a wholesale channel, which is B2B2C, which is even more interesting, because you're educating your broker partners and helping them educate their consumers and their realtors. So actually it's B2B2B and B2B2C on that model. I know, very confusing, a lot of acronyms, but a lot of B's. On the traditional retail model, it's B2B and B2C. Your referral sources, your B2B clients are typically your realtors. It's traditionally, you're going out to look for a home. You're going to contact your realtor now in today's day and age, and saying, hey, are you pre-qualified? And then there's that connectivity happens. But folks that most organizations don't quite think about as far as a referral source is it's a wide net. Right? It's easy to just say realtors, but you have your divorce attorneys, you have your financial planners, you have title companies, you have a number of different appraisers, you have a number of different resources and referral sources that are not traditional in the way we think, but are included in the transactions. And so, have access to knowledge, like a divorce attorney. Typically a house is sold, part of that process, and then there's two people possibly buying a home. And so it's very interesting to think about that. It's unfortunate, another thing that's unfortunate, but you have to look at every avenue today. Now consumers, it's pretty straightforward, but it's still product based, like I mentioned. Reverse, renovation, lending, and refi are typically current homeowners. The issue that we've kind of run into as an industry is just the stiffer regulations on advertising and targeting, obviously, right? So, and then you have redlining as well. A big opportunity across the industry, of course, is first-time home buyers, right? Folks that are still renting, and that's easier to find. But it's also making sure that you're kind of working through underserved communities and those pieces as well.
Now, in the COVID years, I would imagine it's a fairly sharp double-edged sword. On one hand, people are at home, either locked down or working remotely or making changes and more aware of what they want to do to their homes. But interest rates are such that refi market has to be very soft. What sort of solutions have you found for people in the last couple of years to get around that situation?
Well, interest rates are a double-edged sword, but it's also the misinformation around interest rates. I think that, we see a lot of news out there, in the pubs that, hey, the feds are increasing interest rates. They're not increasing the mortgage interest rate. That's kind of the misinformation. What it is, it's a factor into the algorithm that plays into it, right? So it's a culmination of CPI inflation reports, or new starts and builder starts, and so they take a look at all of those things, and based on consumer behavior and inventory and all those other things, like, all right, it goes up or it goes down. But a renovation loan is typically a higher interest rate. And what people fail to realize, which I think is already criminal, is there's credit cards out there with 25%, 30% interest rates. And you'll get it in the mail, a very formal looking, letter. And the number of consumers that go down that path and then default is huge. Right? They'll go out and say, oh, I get $5,000. And what can you get for $5,000? I'm just curious, like a fridge and you're doing your kitchen, right? A fridge and tiling and maybe a sink and a faucet. And you paid 30% interest rate on it. Right? So when that's part of our responsibility for consumer education, right? Is, doing it the right way and, applying for FHA 203K or something like that, and get your dream kitchen, get it all done. And it's it's almost set it and forget it, because it's part of your mortgage, right? So when you look at it when you're able to make that comparison, it's like, should I do a 30%? People pay 15-20% on car notes, right? Talk about depreciating asset.
Oh.
So
Yep.
So it's consumer behavior. They feel like they need it, but that's where we come in. It's like, you make that reinvestment in your home, and you do the kitchen or the bathroom or whatever, and you're appreciating the value of your home. And so it's all about most loan officers that offer programs like that are trained internally and just know how to, one, sell the product, but then be able to give that financial advice back to the consumer. Problem is, renovation lending and things like that are very confusing, right? The realtor doesn't get it, the consumer doesn't get it. Half the times, in some cases, loan officers don't get it. That's not the case here, of course. But then we have to relate it to messaging that they are familiar with. Say, hey, have you watched Chip and Joanna on HGTV? How do you think that home buyer bought that house? Oh, it was a renovation loan. It was a praise at the value of the post renovation. So
interesting. All right. Speaking of messaging, tell me what role content has played in the growth of Kind Lending.
Yeah. So again, when I said earlier, we want to do things outside the box. So we've done some pretty catchy things, and I would be lying if I said that a lot of it was originally planned, in the sense that, hey, we sat down, we brainstormed, we're going to do this campaign, and this is the tactics, and we're going to activate it. It was originally, and this is prior to my arrival at Kind, a lot of the work was done. It was like, hey, bring us your best ideas, which is also a great way, not a team brainstorm. And they kind of ran with it. And I have some I don't know if this is appropriate to share, but maybe it is. I don't know. But these are thank you cards. I've written all over it, but it says, "You're the poop emoji in the best way possible." And I love those. I send those out to a lot of clients and partners, and they don't expect it. They're like, "Wait, what? Why is there a poop emoji on this thank you card?" Right? Not something you'll pick up at the Hallmark or the Walgreens or what have you, but it was unique, and that's what we wanted to do, is not bore you with the basic every day. It doesn't have to be tongue-in-cheek all the time, obviously. So that's where we, when that was born, and kudos to the previous team that was here on the leadership team that prior to my arrival, but we've carried that torch. And now, of course, we've created more thought around it and planning around it and activation around it, to touch every type of product, every type of even holidays. Holidays don't have to be boring. Everyone says Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, right? But we will do something a little bit out of the norm, right? To be a little bit more thought provocative. We don't want to be the ones that, like, we're not the meme company. We're not, that company. We'll try them, right? I think that we'll try anything for a cheap engagement opportunity. But for the most part, our channels are also, while they serve in some cases the same audiences, a little bit different to receptive. So knowing your audience has been very important. We've, I'll be honest, we've received responses like, that wasn't appropriate, or I really don't like that. So then we had to get into really, through CMS or CRMs and things like that, or especially our CRMs, identifying who, if they've complained, right? It's not that they've unsubscribed, it's that they like mentioned it, right? In passing, it's like, so, we don't want to put anyone off either. So we'll attach them to a lighter campaign,
Hey, it's a fine line to walk. You want to be cheeky and catchy and sarcastic, but at the end of the day, you're in a highly compliant, governed, financial space where people are serious when they're putting pen to paper at the end of the day. So it's a fine line to walk.
Exactly. It's kind lending is about good marketing, right? We're a good brand, and being kind doesn't mean we're like a pushover. That we're kind and we're good at what we do, and so that has always been kind of like up in the air. And you and I talked about this a while back, but it's kind of like important to mention that kind is just kind of kindly aggressive, but kindly not just this fly-by-night operation. We're kind to be here for a good amount of time. And so, when a company, is formed, and you're thinking about the name and the taglines and your value props and all of those things, it's interesting. A lot of organizations do a rebrand 2 years, a year and a half after they've launched, and we wanted longevity. But with that has come some, obstacles where, okay, let's reevaluate what kind means or what our value props are. And, I think that a message to anyone that's watching and listening is, it's never not an appropriate time to reconsider not a full rebrand, but what things mean. Because what things meant 3 years ago when the company was launched versus today, as we've grown in the industry and all eyes are on us, that we have to kind of reevaluate some of those things.
Well, hey, I don't think the word kind necessarily implies pushover. I know in my experience, the strongest, most stable centered people I know end up being the kindest. Yep. So you can glean from that what you will.
Yeah, of course.
Let's look a year down the road. What are some things you'd like to be celebrating personally and professionally?
Well, personally, as a marketer, just the growth of the brand. We do look to kind of applying for some campaign recognitions through the pubs, but also one of the things that we're doing, and what I've been so excited about as far as the support from our Glenn Stearns and the executive team, is marketing has a seat at the table here. And so over the course of the next year, and I think this is both personal and professional, is the marketing team, not just myself, but my entire team, is really getting an opportunity to get in front of all salespeople and all operational people. We have established relationships, and marketing is basically, whether it's internal newsletters or to our sales team, or webinars, what have you, it's there, it's part of the culture now. And what's, I've worked at organizations before as marketing just this cost center that sits in this, couple of cubicles in the corner of the corporate office usually. And especially if there's a sales team, that there's this barrier, right? There's this boundary between, oh, that's corporate marketing. But with, my title is business development as well. So marketing is part of that sales team. And so while we don't have traditional boots on the ground, if you will, because we do have a lot of brick and mortar, we are there with them every step of the way, from onboarding through their sales, goals and goal setting and planning. And so over the next year, really want to formalize that. So right now we're in the process of launching marketing plans for each individual salesperson in the entire company. And so, because they have to know what their goal is, right? And then how much skin they have in the game. And it's been, we've tested it, and the adoption of our CRMs, our MarTech stack, and just our campaigns has been immense. In one of our channels, we have a 92% CRM adoption. And that company, that platform that we utilize, that partner, we're the highest out of like 800 clients that they have. 92%, right? So, reputation is another piece of this. So as over the next year, we look to really enhancing our reputation platform in customer satisfaction from B2B and B2C, but not just to say we have 5 stars, which a lot of companies do, but really to identify the experience and the process. So really asking, outside of just the NPS questions, what have you, really getting in the nitty gritty. There's a lot of steps in a mortgage, and we really want to identify where a customer is hung up, what is a constant struggle, and really identify those through some of our fintech solutions as well.
Excellent. Hey, I think connective tissue between marketing and sales is a no-brainer of epic proportion. I encounter companies all the time where there is just a line in the sand there, and it makes no sense. You're asking somebody to fill your pipeline, but you don't communicate in a bi-directional manner with them. It makes no sense to me. So I applaud that approach.
Thank you.
All right, please tell our listeners, what is your URL? Where can they find Kind Lending, and what social media outlets are you using these days?
Sure. So Kind Lending is on all social media platforms, including the newest one, which is, I think, Threads. We're really going crazy on TikTok with a lot of new content coming up, Instagram and the Reels. But there's Kind Lending, and for our broker partners, if you're a mortgage broker, kindtpo.com to get signed up there. And kindlending.com is our retail channel. We are licensed in, I could be wrong, but I believe it is 47 states. Alaska is an outlier, but we are in Hawaii, so that's cool. But think about not just more buying a home, but refinancing a home or renovating a home, or thinking about reverse. We have a huge product lineup. But interact with us in social media. We are on there. We're guilty of being on social a lot because that's where all of you are. So,
Krish Dhokia of Kind Lending, thank you for spending some time with us today on Business Ninjas. I wish you and yours and Kind Lending all the best in the future.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.